Hello! Welcome to the Sweet Tea Shakespeare Hours, where we spend time well by spending it together. I'm Claire Martin.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi.
How we doing?
We're doing great. How are you doing, Jeremy? Is that Diet Coke or regular?
It's Coke Zero.
Fantastic.
I seriously contemplated bringing peanuts on so I could share with you our cultural experience, but
I still
decided public was maybe not the best place to do that for the first time.
I still don't believe that's a thing. You're gonna have to show me other people doing that before I believe it.
Do you do it with the shells on, Jeremy? Or
No. I think it's off, but I don't know. I've just heard about it.
You're not a connoisseur.
I could get the salty sweet thing that way. I could understand it, but I don't know. I just live here.
Don't claim it. I got called a Southern Belle yesterday and I cringed. I was like, oh, I just have an accent.
It reminds me of things like we haven't talked about with
that.
Claire, though, like things like fatback. We haven't talked about that yet.
Oh, God, I love fatback. Holy crap.
What?
I just drooled a little bit in my mouth.
Is it like fast food?
No. If I say the words fatback to you, what do you think it is? And whatever you think it is probably right.
Careful. No, it's probably not. Oh, so good. What is it called? Brinlin? No. There's. Look, I gotta Google it now. You keep thinking about it, Claire.
God, it's such a 5 move there, Kelly.
Yeah.
I gotta Google it. I'm trying to figure out what it is just based on Kelly's responses, and whatever I thought it was, I think I'm wrong because it doesn't line up with what she's talking. I don't know why she'd be drooling. What is it?
It's the back of a pig.
Mm-hmm. The fat back of a pig.
The fat back of a pig.
Cracklin.
Like.
That's what it's called.
Say what?
Cracklin.
Oh,
it's
yeah, cracklin. Now that's.
You know it?
Oh, I do. They sell them in gas stations here.
Yep. That's what I was looking at. I was picturing the bag.
Cracklin is a deep fried pork intestine and cut up into little rings like calamari, but it's crispy, not chewy. Exactly.
It's so salty. But
fatback is the back of a pig. That's like they do pig roast here, hog roast here. They call them something else, but that's the thing. And then she's like, it's like it wants to be a cousin of pork belly, but it isn't.
Mm-mm. It's more for flavor, truthfully.
Yeah.
You put it in with your beans, and it just helps kind of marinate. It's almost
collards.
like a ham hock or
Do you know about collards?
Oh God,
no.
Okay.
Oh, we're gonna cook for you as soon as you get here.
It'll be fine.
Yeah, I feel like my mom's gonna kill you guys because my blood pressure is just gonna skyrocket in very
I think that is
unhealthy
true.
way.
When you move to the south, your cholesterol goes like that. Everything is deep fried animal fat something.
Yikes.
Yeah. Sorry.
See,
sorry,
and just
vegetarian.
before we started, I was drinking a green smoothie, so I really don't know what I'm walking into here.
Yeah.
I mean that's here too. It's just that's the sort of like the sort of commercial culture laid on top of the Southern culture. And I have to say, and this is a criticism of the town from which we are broadcasting, but Fayetteville is almost south. And the reason is because we have all this influence from Fort Bragg that's really cosmopolitan and national. And so you could visit Fayetteville and not have a Southern experience, but one county over, it's totally different.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. And what about Raleigh?
Raleigh is a southern city, so it's got both of those things kind of right next to each other. I mean, it's a city. It's just any city. It has hipsters and stuff,
Good. My people.
They just have a little drawl.
You can escape to it if that's what you're asking.
I mean, I don't think I'm a particularly good hipster, but at least I'll have my sea legs there in a way that I fear I will not in Fayetteville.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. Okay, we're talking about Enneagram 6 today.
Enneagram 6, here we go.
Speaking of cholesterol and blood pressure, you guys ready?
Nice segue. Wow.
Yeah, right. I know that kind of like flowed right in. I'm getting better. All right. So today we're talking about Enneagram 6s. These folks are often called the loyalists or the guardians, often the doubters too. So these folks are anchoring the head triad or the thinking triad. So their center of intelligence, they're going to interpret everything coming in through their minds versus their body or their feelings. Their emotion that they have the easiest access to, and the thing that prompts them to action is fear, just like the 7 and the 5, but for different reasons. So they're really oriented around security. The 6s actually kind of feel secure in group environments. So they're much more relationship driven than the 5 say was last week. Their repressed center, so remember their primary is head center. Their repressed center, the thing that they're most detached from, is actually the head center. So remember we talked about with the 3 that 3 is in this central triangle, making them the anchor points of each of the triads. The 6s are actually disconnected from their head center, which is an interesting thing, because if they could just rely on the information that they have, they would probably feel less anxious about the world and fearful about the world. More on that in a second. So they're also in the reactive group. So remember we talked about how you deal with conflict. So they share this with the 8 and the 4. And actually they're also called they're in that little triad, they're also considered to be like the intensity triad, right? So when they're met with something that they need to handle, they do meet it head on with intensity. Yeah. So they deal with getting their needs met by complying. So they're in the compliant grouping as far as that's concerned. So they're going to move towards people versus away from or against. They're going to move toward. And once again, remember, they're going to rely on and be loyal to their group or whatever, setting that they find themselves comfortable in. So the core desire for a 6 is to have support and guidance. Their fear is of having no support or being unable to survive alone. Their fixation, or the thing that keeps them from establishing all of these desires, is cowardice. So it's kind of the thing that always gets them in the way. And then their passion, again, theirs is actually fear. So not only is it shared by the entire triad as kind of a core emotion, but this is actually their struggle, their internal struggle. So they're typically considered to be really steadfast folks. They have this tendency, though, to kind of get caught up in anxiety and doubt and worry and worst case scenario thinking. Again, everything they're bringing into themselves and to their knowing, their sense of being, is through their heads, and they're typically threat forecasting 5, 6, 7 steps down the road to make sure that they still have security in their people, their group, right?
I feel very 6 right now. I feel very 6.
They're faithful, they're collaborative, they're conscientious, they're community minded. They're really oriented around safety. So everything is it safe? Am I prepared? Right. They also, the one we talked about having an inner critic, on their shoulder, kind of judging, the 6s have what they call an inner committee. So there's this whole committee of voices in their minds.
And they contradict each other, I bet.
They often are probably at different sides of the odds, right? Like, this thing might be safe if we do this, but what about this that could happen? And what about that?
You can't be every type.
I don't think I'm every type. I'm trying to figure it out. It's confusing as hell.
Oh, Jeremy. Okay, so when they're healthy, they are self-reliant, courageous, engaging, reliable, committed, cooperative, and dutiful. You can trust these folks, right? Okay. They're hospitable. Like, I have so many 6 friends in my life, and they are rocks, right? Defense, or when they start to unravel and maybe they're a bit unhealthy, they can become defensive. They can become kind of authoritarian. They can blame folks, become blaming, sort of as a way of being. They're anxious, panicky, could be paranoid, could also be overcommitted and indecisive. So,
those things are true.
So one thing that when I think about this in like common day terms or like people that I know, the 6 is the person that always has like everything you could imagine in their purse, right? So in mom land, I'm the person that grabs a handful of marshmallows and maybe a water bottle out the door with the baby, you know, or whatever. My sister is a 6. She has first aid, you know, like she's got like the Mary Poppins bag. She is prepared for every possible scenario. It's exhausting in that little brain, right? Like it's always like playing out what would happen, what would happen, what would happen. But she's prepared for literally everything, to include like one day she pulled out little spray bottles with the fan on them with the misters for the kids because it was a little hot. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, oh, that would not.
I think my mom might be a 6.
It could be momness in general, right? Like having to like protect people and like raise people, but
she plans for every possible calamity in a way that my friends' moms don't so much. Like she has contingency plans out to wazoo.
Yep.
Always. Yeah.
I'm thinking stage managers are probably drawn to the 6, you know?
Totally. I've had stage managers that have been like classic 6s from what I'm hearing.
I've heard stories, you know, on different podcasts and things of 6s talking about being a 6, and there's a funny, like, reverberating theme. They all know where to sit on an airplane in case it crashes with the highest odds of, like, surviving the crash. You know what I'm saying? Like, most of us don't get on an airplane thinking these things. But it's like, okay, what could go wrong? Okay, if it did, like, and these are things that keep them up at night. So it's just kind of a constant churning of how am I protected? How are my people protected? Right? So most people only talk about the 2 subtypes of 6 because they are so important. A lot of times 6s don't feel aligned with the descriptions because, you know, they're either one of these 2 types, but keep in mind there are 3 types of 6s. So I'm jumping around a little bit, but I feel like this one is important to address up front. Typically you'll hear 6s referred to either phobic 6s or counterphobic 6s. So what that refers to is, the self-pres 6 is considered the phobic 6, and the sexual 6 is the counter type, and they're counterphobic. So what that looks like is their orientation around authority. So the 6s are very attuned. All 6s are very attuned. They know who's in charge. They look for it because that's safety, right? Or it's not safety. There is either a protection or a loyalty to the group in a way where they adhere to authority and they seek out the group as the authority or the leader in the group as the authority, or they are aligned with the group and see another source of leadership or authority that threatens the group, and then they're counter. So those 6, the counterphobic 6, the sexual 6, actually looks a lot like an 8 when they get into that space, because they're like, mama bear, these are my people, like, who are you, what do you want, right? Like kind of suspicious and always making sure that the stability of the group, again, where they find their security is protected. So they have 2 wings, like every other type. There's either a 6-wing 5 or a 6-wing 7. So the 6-wing 5 is typically called the defender. So with the 5 wing, they're going to bring in more of the practical problem solving, like analytical sort of strength. So you're going to see more systems, codes, right? Like regulations in place with these folks. The 6-wing 7 is called the buddy. So they're pulling from the 7, the enthusiast. They're going to be more engaging, funny, hospitable, and mainly oriented around connections and making sure that everyone in the group is feeling welcome and loved. Let's see. The stress and security movements for the 6, they go to either 3 or to 9. So in growth or their heart point, they move to the 9, which is the peacemaker. When they can reach into that energy and draw from that, it can help, once again, ground them because they're reaching into the body triad. It can help present some rest because they are just, again, always worried. And it can also help them process some of the fears that they're experiencing by just kind of slowing down and getting more in touch with, you know, the 9 energy that can allow them the space to be able to process in their body versus just always up here in their head. Sure. In stress, there's a movement to 3. So if done well, they can move to 3 to help them stop doing the catastrophizing is a word that you'll hear a lot with 6s. but it can actually help them be less pessimistic. They can be more, or they can get rid of this. Oh, I've got it backwards on my notes. I was like, wait, these don't look like good moves. On the on the high side of 3, they can be more driven. They can win over people a little more by tapping into that doing, like getting stuff done kind of thing, instead of just continually thinking it through. In a low side or an unintentional move, that will bring out more of the workaholic tendencies, the suspicion, and maybe some of the pessimism and blaming. So I think that about covers it. I had written down Ellen, Tom Hanks, and David Letterman, just kind of some random popular sixes. I've heard a lot of people say that there's a thought that most people are 6s, at least most Americans are probably 6s in some way, shape, or form. Again, those 2 subtypes lend a bit more variance to what that can look like and present as.
Yeah.
So, and then what else?
It would make sense to me that capitalism would breed a lot of 6s.
For sure.
That seems really legit.
Yeah, and the connection with 3 there is pretty.
Yeah,
that's a strong connection and an easy move.
In a good way and a bad way, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Really true.
So folks that are likely to mistype as a 6. Yeah, folks that are likely to mistype themselves as a 6 are 2s, 5s, and 1s. But 6s are often mistyped as 4, 8s, and 1s. So there's a couple of connections.
That's my problem right there.
It could be. So the 6 and the 8 is the reactive connection.
Yeah.
The 4 and the 6, well, that's still in the reactive. So 6, 8, and 4 are all in the reactive. The 1 has to do with the repressed head center. They're present oriented, like their orientation to time is the right now. And then the compliance when getting your needs met. So there's a couple of really valid ties there, Jeremy, that we can explore. So
I can't wait to hear who you have, Jeremy.
Well, it's clear to me now that Kellie and I are going to have a spin-off podcast where
type Jeremy.
Yes, what are you today?
No,
we'll narrow it down.
Claire will not be a part. She will not be appearing.
That's fine. You can just call in from time to time.
She doesn't have the patience for it.
See what our progress is, because we'll just sit and contemplate all day.
This is agonizing.
So I do have a few, and I need some help with them because I'm not. So I want to go back to the phobic counterphobic thing for just a second to make sure I understand. You're saying that there's a kind of 6 that sort of respects and finds security in the authority of the group and like defends it. And there's a kind of 6 that doesn't, that suspects the authority in the group and therefore like leads a rebellion.
Mainly because it would threaten their connection to the group, right? Because again, that's security. So like I heard about this in a church setting, right? So there's either folks that are like, the pastor's in charge, we trust him implicitly, and they kind of hold everyone together based on sort of this orientation to that authority, or versus the 6 that's like, this guy is no good for us, like let's do everything, like that sort of a movement, because they see the intrusion of someone who they don't connect with or think is good for the group as a threat that could lead to them being disconnected from the group and therefore challenging their safety. So let me just read, because I want to make sure that I present this clearly. Again, this is Ginger Lapid Bogda's book. The self-preservation 6, which we've established is the phobic 6, is called warmth. And they have an intense need to feel protected from danger, often utilizing the family, a surrogate family, or support groups to provide this. They use their warmth and friendliness as a way to feel safe. They can be confused with the self-preservation subtype 2. All right, the social 6, which we didn't really talk about, I think this one can kind of split the fence a little bit. Focuses on, it's called duty, focuses on rules, regulations, prescribed ways of behaving within social environments and groups as a way to keep their behavior acceptable and not get chastised or punished by authority figures, and that can be confused with a 1. And then the sexual 6, 1-to-1, or counterphobic 6 is called strength or beauty, and they deny their own anxieties and vulnerabilities by pushing against their fear, appearing bold, confident, charismatic, and sometimes fierce or fearless, and this can be confused with an 8. Does that help?
It does. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. Thank you.
All right,
Ginger.
Jeremy, I want to know if we have any crossover. I'm really interested.
I expect we do. We've been
I would
pretty
hope
good
so.
at that so far.
We actually have, yeah.
Okay, so I will say I think Touchstone is a 6, and As You Like
Yes.
It.
Yeah.
Very much about both. He's a sort of this interesting guy who both presses against some authority sometimes, and then like becomes this puppy dog at other times. I just think it's interesting. I think Bardolph is maybe a 6.
My babe, yeah, he
Who,
is.
and the reason I wrote Bardolph down was after doing a tiny bit of research, and learning that Rush Limbaugh is a 6, and I think those two characters have something in common.
Wow. Okay.
Anyway, for what it's worth, so we talked about this before we came on, but there's a higher percentage on my list of women 6s in Shakespeare, and I want to talk about that.
I think we should.
I have Calpurnia.
As do I.
Anne Boleyn.
Yep.
Lady Macduff.
Yep.
I know you've mentioned this character already, but it might be worth talking about. Nurse. I think I wrote Nurse down because that's like a high anxiety character. I have I wonder about Margaret in Much Ado About Nothing. Bianca in Othello.
I have Bianca.
Viola, perhaps.
Yep.
In Twelfth Night.
Her.
Then I have a bunch of sort of lesser knowns, like, not that Anne Boleyn is she's only known because we know Henry VIII, but so I have Boyette in Love's Labour's Lost. I have Seward in Macbeth.
Wait. I'm sorry. Can I time out for a second? Who'd you have from Love's Labours? You cut off on my screen.
Boyette.
Yes. Okay. Great.
Yep.
I have him too.
Seward in Macbeth. Starveling and Snug, potentially in Midsummer.
Okay.
I think that's because of the anxiety thing too. I have a great character in Pericles called Baud, who is this bundle of anxiety, and sort of melts when he finds a different kind of security. Anyway, maybe Sebastian in Twelfth Night. That would be interesting on the twinning side.
Yep.
I have the clown in The Winter's Tale, another little character. I wrote down Corin in As You Like It. I'm not quite convinced there. He may be something else, like a 9.
I was gonna say I think I have him as a 9.
But he's a very healthy 6. He's not anything else. And also I have a question mark beside Gertrude.
As do I. Yeah.
The security thing makes a lot of sense there. I don't know that we see tons of the anxiety out loud until late in that play.
But that doesn't mean that she's not suffering desperately and quietly all the way through.
Yep.
Yeah. So what Jeremy alluded to regarding the female question, I had brought this up before we started the broadcast because it's something that I have some strong feelings about, which is that as I was going back over my list in preparation for today, I realized that a good percentage of the characters I have listed are women. And I think there is a problematic patriarchal trend of placing women in the 6 role in Western culture. The role of having to plan for every kind of disaster on behalf of the men who don't have to worry about it. Of being loyal to the group, to the family, right? Of being the support structure, the person who is faithful and loyal and will defend that group instead of looking out maybe just for themselves first. The loyalist character being often typed as highly strung and anxious feels very it's problematic to me that there would be more representations of women in that role when men
comes to mind.
When men can be freaking hysterical. Right?
Yeah.
And yet there's the misconception that women are too highly strung to function.
Right.
And so what I had brought up before we started was that I question whether some of the women that I have in my list are authentic 6s or if the playwright, who was a man living in the 16th century, and or the male characters in the play are like forcing them into the box of a 6. I just think there's more misogyny at play than may be totally apparent, and I wonder if that's why I have a higher percentage of women in this list, because I certainly don't want what I have culled from the plays to suggest that I think that women are like naturally more prone to 6ness, because I don't think that's true. I think the patriarchy wants to perpetuate that myth, right? So I just want to make sure that all of the women that we talk about today, Jeremy, we really look at like their function in their play, and whether we see their genuine motivations as being 6ful, or whether it seems that the powers that be in those stories and or the male playwright writing them kind of shoehorned them into 6ness. So I just want to make sure that that's something that's on our radar. As someone who's been playing female Shakespeare characters for a long time, I think it's worth discussing in depth. That doesn't mean that women can't be 6s. In fact, I think I have a couple on my list that I think are like quintessential 6s, and they happen to be women. But I just want us to make sure we're taking that into consideration.
If you enjoy the work of Sweet Tea Shakespeare, the number one thing you can do is log on to patreon.com/sweetteashakes and make a monthly pledge. Those pledges start at $5 and they go up to $500. Actually, you can set whatever amount you want. At certain levels, there are great perks, including in-person tickets, and those include all digital access. Patrons at the $20 level just get in. They just get in. It's delightful. But that is the greatest way that you can show support to Sweet Tea Shakespeare and help us continue to do the work of this podcast and so many of the other things that we do throughout the year. Not to throw fuel on the fire exactly, but I forgot one, which is one in a play that I'm working on right now, Jailer's Daughter in Two Noble Kinsmen.
Yep, I have her.
Is another one that is a problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She's not a problem. She's fine. But like, it falls into that potential trap.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. Great. So
who do you have?
I love that.
So as the ultimate, like, I'm gonna prefer earlier, but I'm realizing she's just classic 6. Helena from All's Well That Ends Well, I think, is like the perfect 6, possibly. I think that she goes to 3 on the good side when she loves Bertram, right? She just charges into the King of France's court. She says, I'm either going to heal you, and if I can't, then you can kill me, and if I do it properly, then you're going to let me marry whom I want. And then, she when she sees Bertram in Italy, she goes to the widow and she's like, I have a plan, let's do this. She just kind of becomes an achiever when she's in sort of that stressful situation, and sometimes she thrives in it, and sometimes she becomes incredibly, kind of like anxious and frenetic, and she really, there's a lot of self-loathing in her anxiety when Bertram doesn't love her, when he rejects her. She just seems lacking in that sort of like fundamental self-esteem, and I think part of that is because her father has just died. We don't get the sense that her mother was with her for much of her life. I think she's craving a family. I think she's craving like intimacy with people. And she's so grateful to the Countess for kind of taking her under her wing and supporting her marriage to Bertram. She kind of hurls herself at the widow and Diana and Violenta, and she's like, let me be a part of your cadre of women. I think she just really craves the community. But she's kind of been forced into isolation in her world. And so I just think that she's very 6. I also have from that play The Widow, potentially. From As You Like It, I also have Touchstone. I think Celia is 6 wing 7. I think Celia is like as the super engaging, healthy, like through thick and thin, like I'm at your side, I'm your best friend, I love you, I will protect you. Got a really like sort of strong sense of self, but like Celia just to me screams like healthy 6 wing 7. Comedy of Errors, Emilia, in so much as we see her. From Cymbeline, I have King Cymbeline. and he strikes me as a very unhealthy 6, somebody who doesn't really get it. I also have Boyette from Love's Labours. From Measure for Measure, I have Claudio. And I think that Claudio wants Isabella to also be a 6, and she's not. She's a 1, which is where their brother-sister tension comes from, because he's like, I'm loyal to you. Why can't you be loyal to me? And she's like, I am loyal to God. So I think that's where their disconnect comes from. Merchant of Venice, I don't know about you, Jeremy. I think Lancelot Gobbo might be a 6.
Sure. Yeah. I had, I think a lot of clowns are.
Yeah.
As they present, because there's like this ball of anxiety trying to get some job done, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Totally. In a similar vein, I have Robert Shallow from Merry Wives. I think he's a 6. From Midsummer Night's Dream, God, I feel bad for anyone named Helena, because I also have Helena from Midsummer. and also Aegeus from that play, I think is a 6. I think his loyalties are misplaced, but I think he's a 6. From Much Ado, I think Dogberry might be a 6.
Mm-hmm, sure. Yeah.
And
another clown.
Another clown.
Who's a ball of anxiety.
And also Conrad, Don John's bro Conrad. I think Conrad might be a 6. From Pericles, I didn't have the bod. It's interesting you bring up the bod. I can see the bod. I don't know if I'm
I said the bod, but I mean Bolt. That's what I meant.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
The bod is a woman.
Yeah.
That's why I was like.
I just wrote it down because it started with a B, but I meant Bolt.
I also had Helicanus from that play.
Oh, sure. I thought about writing him down, and then I thought, no, that guy's like reliable and healthy, and then I moved on. But he is a healthy 6.
He could be a healthy 6.
Yep.
That's like, I think Celia is a healthy 6.
Sure.
I think she still has a sense of self, even though she's so loyal to Rosalind. From Taming of the Shrew, I have Grumio, maybe. I have Alonso from The Tempest.
I thought about writing him down too.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
And then I was like, he's a nothing. That's what I think. He's in the middle of the Enneagram.
Ouch.
He's the void.
He's a void. There's barely a character there at all.
Listen, I've heard some people say that that's the ideal place to be, is right there in the middle. But anyway.
I had this theory that Hamlet might be in the void, because when we were talking about 5s, I was like, there are moments when he's a 5 and there are moments when he's a 4, and there's the existential gulf between them. I think Hamlet might just live in that existential gulf.
He's just hanging out.
He's just hanging out there. From Troilus and Cressida, I'm going to bump up Patroclus. I had Patroclus in a different category, but I think Patroclus is definitely a 6, with his loyalty to Achilles. And I think Agamemnon potentially is also a 6. I had highlighted the question mark. I want to talk about her because, again, I don't know if that's actually her or if that's the play that she's in. But I also had Fabian and Sebastian. So I think Fabian and Sebastian are both contenders for 6 from that play. From Two Gentlemen of Verona, I have another clown. I have Speed from Two Gents. From The Winter's Tale, I have Hermione as a potential 6, but I also have a question mark because I don't know if that's who she is or if that's what the play wants her to be.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna put Hermione, because I've thought about Hermione now. This is the second time I've thought about her, and I think I'm going to settle on her as a 9. But I thought about it. I really did, because it's not like there's no concern, there's no anxiety. You know, it's not like that. So. Yeah, but I do wonder if it's like a circumstantial thing.
Because I have Perdita as a 9, and I don't know, maybe mother and daughter are both 9s in that play. From the Henriade, I have a bunch, and it was very fun for me to find all my lovely loyalists from my Henriade plays. From Richard II, the Duchess of York is a 6, and from and potentially I think that O'Merle is one of those characters that you could actually play 2 ways, because I had him as a 4 and I think he could definitely be played as a 4. I think the text supports that. I also think the text supports a reading of him as a 6. So I think potentially with O'Merle you could go either way.
Well, like I'm both, so he could be both.
Sure.
I know I'm not both. I know I'm not both.
I give up.
So
this
Kellie,
is my character that I'm playing right now.
But Kellie, this would be a good time to go to you. So 4s and 6s. We have this character O'Merle who is he's like puppy dog loyal to his king that he also sort of loves on a personal level. And he has the capacity to be sort of reckless and outspoken, but he also feels very deeply, and he's quite an innocent in his world. So like 4s and 6s, how do we differentiate?
Okay. So let's see. They don't typically cause confusion, but except remember we already talked about the intensity triad. So they're both kind of in there. One question is heart or head, right? So they're in different centers of intelligence groupings. So do you process through your head or through your heart? And whatever you're doing, is it done emotionally or done with great thought? Are they deep or complex is another one. So 4s run deep. 6s just have a lot of complexity, right? So, and that's more of just kind of how you perceive yourself as a person. So the 4 would be experience themselves as very deep, symbolic people, deep in feeling, thought, and nuance. Although they may be also complex, deep is a better description. And then 6s may be deep, but they're more aptly described as complex and even complicated. So, and then the other thing is fun. Like, what do you do for fun? So a 4 can be serious and intense, but they also enjoy having fun and can get quite silly and playful. They're looking for also still deep, meaningful, inspirational experiences as fun. And then the 6 will want to have fun, but there's a little drawing of a guy who's trying to rock climb, but they're strapped in all the gear and the helmet and they're kind of held back or limited based on like the precautions of what the fun could be. It's fun. It's still fun, but it's not kind of uninhibited. So
okay, take it back. Omeral's a 4. He's a 4. He's heart-centered. Okay, so forget what I said about Omeral.
I have a question about.
Yeah.
Well, you keep going. I'll come back to it.
Okay, so from the Henriade, I also have Westmoreland, Ned Poins, who's kind of the young clown, right? The young version of the clown.
And is the buddy. Literally.
And the buddy is I have Ned Poins and Celia I had as prime 6 wing 7. I think they are both like they epitomize that. I have a question next to Kate Percy because I don't know if that's who she is or if that's who the play kind of forces her to be, but I do think that Mistress Quickly is a 6. I think Quickly is like a true.
Yeah, sure. I said Quickly the other day and I think I'm wrong.
I think she's a 6.
Is one of those that like she could be, in my view, could be a 6 or an 8.
Yeah, I think she could be an 8 too.
It's like this assertive 6 who's like rebellious, or could be this other strong-willed kind of type.
Yeah, definitely. I had Mistress Quickly as a 6, but I agree with you that I see 8 tendencies there too. I think Falstaff's boy is a 6. I think 5 is a 6. And my personal favorite character, I think is prime 6 is Montjoy, the French herald from Henry V. From the Wars of the Roses, I have Edward IV, who becomes king. I think he's a classic 6. He's not particularly bright, but he's very 6. And then on the much more intelligent side of 6, Lady Grey, the one he marries, Elizabeth Woodville. I think she's and into Richard III. I think she is like real.
I
almost
wrote
real
them both down, and I
yeah,
didn't. And I don't know why. Maybe
think
I'm a 6 who's a coward.
Ouch.
I also think young Clifford, who becomes Clifford, I think is a loyalist. He's a loyalist with a lot of anger issues, but I think he's a loyalist. And then I also had from Richard III, Stanley and Catesby, potentially. I don't know. My problem with Richard III, I don't really like that play all that much, because I struggle to see any humans besides Richard III. I'm like, where are the other people in this play?
Yeah, I think they're cartoons, and you know.
Yeah, I think his scene with Elizabeth is great. I think that second quote unquote wooing scene with Elizabeth is great, but for the rest of the play, she is just so far on the periphery that I really struggle to care in that play because I feel like I don't get any portrait besides just the one. From King John, I have King Philip and Princess Blanche, potentially a child teaching a father, that kind of thing. A father teaching a child. From Henry VIII, I don't know, Jeremy, is Catherine of Aragon a 6, or is she just a 6 in the circumstances of that play? Because she might also be an 8, right?
Yeah, and I think I put her down as a 4 too. But that's those 3 numbers plus the 1, which she could also be. Where she's got the religious, holy sort of take of a 1.
Yeah.
She's got this dark, streaky, potential emotional thing as a 4. I mean, she's her whole circumstance is anxiety.
Yeah.
And certainly she presents in the trial, I think, like an 8. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Long story short, she's the best part of Henry VIII, the play. She is so great. From Antony and Cleopatra, I have Lepidus and Eros and Charmian. I also had Octavia with a question mark, but I don't even know if Octavia comes across to me as a person in that play. She seems like just a chess piece. So I don't know, maybe you have feelings. Again, I'm biased against this play, so maybe I'm not taking it, maybe I'm not looking deeply enough, but I don't want to call Octavia a 6 just because the play forces her to be one, you know?
I think in productions I've seen, they have almost always presented her as a 6.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know. I agree with
Yeah.
you that I don't think there's a third dimension there necessarily.
Yeah. I do think Eros, though, is a really great example of a not clown lower class character who is a true 6. I think Eros is like a really sublime example of that, actually. From Coriolanus, I think I said Menenius earlier this week, and I'm now rethinking it. I think Menenius might be a super like manipulative 6, if such a thing exists. I don't know.
That's a 3. That's the Rush Limbaugh type, right?
Yeah.
He's like borrowing from that, whatever that is.
Yeah, I think he goes to a 3, but I think Menenius is possibly like
J. Edgar Hoover, manipulative as hell, also a 6.
Yeah, see, that's Menenius to me, the J. Edgar Hoover type. That's how I read that character. So potentially. I also had a question next to Queen Gertrude because I just want to be careful. I also think Laertes might be a 6. I think of Laertes as being the young Clifford of Hamlet, right? Like the 6 with the anger issues.
Mm-hmm.
6 with the unresolved father issues. From Julius Caesar, I also have Calpurnia, but I don't know, do we think Brutus might be a 6?
Mm-hmm.
Or is he yeah? I think he could be.
He's worried that entire play.
He's so anxious. He's so high strung.
Yeah.
From King Lear, I think Edmund might be a 6 who just like doesn't have his community. You know what I mean? I don't know. I have this theory that Edmund is like not what we think he is, or not what he would want to be. I think he would want to be an 8, but I don't think he is. And I think that's part of what's so alluring about the character, is that we sense the overlooked, dismissed, hurt little boy. We sense that underneath the veneer of like villain. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Also Kent. Is Kent maybe a 6?
Yeah, I think for me it's maybe we can go back to Kelly here. I see a lot of 2 there maybe because of the circumstance. Yeah. So tell us about the difference between a 6 and a 2.
6 and a 2. You guys brought up father issues or daddy issues, and I actually kind of want to come back to that too. So that's a part of the kind of childhood wound experience. And this gets a little like, I don't know if I necessarily want to go all in with this sort of vantage point or perspective, because I've heard gentler versions of this explained, but in Riso and Hudson's book, he talks about the core like childhood wound from the 6 being the fact that, typically the mother is the nurturer, the father is the, authority essentially. And if there's abandonment stuff with the father, then they now question and are suspicious of authority, causing this sort of orientation to like, where do I get my support from? Because I can't trust the father figure. So does that help?
All right. I need the Phoebigs at home to turn off the stream right now, because I may have some things to say.
Like I said, there are much gentler variations of that sort of message. And I because again, and I didn't resonate with the 5 childhood wound in this book, but I've read more generous interpretations of what ways in
Sure.
which you could perceive. So just disclaimer.
But also, these are Shakespeare plays, right? So in order
Right.
to make the drama cook, Shakespeare naturally turns up the dial on everything because you have to do that in theater. To make us
Okay,
feel it, you
so-
have to turn it way up.
2 versus 6. Question 1 is why you do things for others. So why are you doing it? The 2 will say being liked and needed has very little to do with safety. They're just doing it because that's their way of gaining affection and feeling loved. The 6 may think they have far more than, the 6 may have to think about this far more than the 2. So pay attention to the amount of thought time involved, but they will almost always say being loyal and secure or safe is really what drives their behavior. So if by being generous, they then are able to kind of seal up, this feeling of safety and security. The other thing is worry. So 2s don't generally worry that much. 6s can't not, like they literally can't not worry. Worst case scenario is like a common thing. And then risk is the other one. So 2s are more apt to be risky or engage in risky behavior, and a 6 is probably not so much going to do that.
That's Kent. Kent's a 6.
Oh, I was going to say he's definitely a 2.
And I was thinking about Horatio at the same time. Thinking, Horatio, because we mentioned him for a 2 maybe.
Yeah, 2, 6, and 9 are the ones I continually come back to for Horatio. I don't know yet. We're going to have to hear about the 9 before I can commit on that. But because Kent, he literally is banished, and rather than pitching a hissy fit or whatever, he's like, great, so I'm just going to disguise myself and come back because I got to take care of Lear.
But I see that as loyalty and
But there's nothing to do with there's nothing to do with safety in it. It's because
not for him, I agree. Not necessarily for him, I guess I would say, but sort of for Lear, there's a defensive thing happening there.
I guess if he wants the safety to be Lear's or the kingdom's perhaps, then that's fine.
I also keep coming back to I think 2s are the worst. And
they're not always.
And I don't. I love Kent. I love Wade Newhouse's Kent.
You have such a cynical view of 2s. They are not all terrible. I know lovely 2s, and I know there are wonderful 2s in the canon. We talked about some of them.
Do you love Sweet Tea Shakespeare? Do you believe in the mission of our company? Then you should consider becoming a board member. If you're interested in learning more, please email us at gm@sweetteashakespeare.com. That's G as in general, M as in manager at sweetteashakespeare.com.
So the primary defense mechanism for the 6 is projection. So unconsciously attributing your own feelings, drives, intentions, thoughts, and behaviors onto other people. These externalized attribution can be positive qualities or negative qualities. So
is that the scene with Oswald when Kent unloads God knows how many years of frustration onto this servant who says 2 words to him? Is that scene? Just pure projection. Because I think what I'm hearing is Edmund. I think Edmund is an evil 6 or a really unhealthy 6. But I think Kent maybe too.
I would love to see J. Edgar Hoover as Edmund. I think that works.
Yes, I think it does.
There are a lot of things that are similar happening between those 2 figures.
I really want to direct Coriolanus now and have Menenius go the J. Edgar Hoover route. I want that to be the inspiration for how we approach that character, because that rings so true to me. Menenius is a snake. And he masks it all behind loyalty to Rome and loyalty to the state.
All right.
I know
I'll buy a ticket.
Processing.
So, from Mackers, I also have Lady Macduff, which made me feel a little icky, but I think that's what she is. I also had Bianca from Othello. Again, I was not psyched about it, but I was kind of. From Romeo and Juliet, I think Tybalt is a 6.
Yeah.
I think Tybalt. I think Tybalt goes the way of, for me, Laertes and young Clifford. I think young Clifford, Laertes, and Tybalt are of a type.
And
together.
Alex Jones, also a 6.
Ow.
You think about the temper. I mean, like these ragers, which is what Tybalt is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Sure.
Newt Gingrich is a 6.
Oh my God.
That's like, think about these ragers. That's him.
Why do you insist on only finding the negative attributes of every time, Jeremy?
No, it's like, also Lewis Black. So I'm being politically balanced. Also a rager from the other side. Ellen Page, sort of a rager from the other side. Michael
Sure.
Moore, rager from the other side. So
Yeah.
I think that, I don't know, I think it fits. I don't think they're all ragers.
Yeah.
But also on this list, Mel Gibson. I mean, like,
What website are you on?
the maybe 6s are the worst. But then I'm like,
So let me-
how is Alex Jones, Newt Gingrich, Mel Gibson, Rush Limbaugh, and then Tom Hanks on the same page?
And let me bring some balance. So 5 with a 6 wing examples I have in the Riso Hudson book: Robert Kennedy, Malcolm X, Tom Clancy, Bruce Springsteen, Michelle Pfeiffer, Diane Keaton, Gloria Steinem, Mel Gibson, Janet Reno, Richard Nixon. I don't know if all
So
of those
many
are
like
balanced,
public,
but-
like activist figures.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
but that's the defender role. Remember? So the 5
Sure.
with a 6 wing is the defender. Now you've
Wait.
got your 5 with a 6 wing.
You mean 6 with a 5 wing?
That's what I meant. 6
Yeah.
with 5 wing. Thank you. And then now we've got a 6 with a 7 wing. Examples: Princess Di, Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan, Julia Roberts, Jay Leno, Ellen DeGeneres, Gilda Radner,
Entertainers.
Katie
They're all entertainers.
Couric, Jack Lemmon, Rush Limbaugh, and George Costanza as the character.
But they're all, interestingly enough, you use the word entertainer, which is right, and mostly different from actor. Do you know what I mean?
You know, if Julia Roberts was still like really young, I would totally cast her as Celia, and she could just have
Sure.
like a 6 palooza. I think that would be this is like a 6 wing 7. I think that would be magnificent.
Well, she won the Oscar for Erin Brockovich, which is
Yeah.
her type.
Totally.
Exactly.
Totally her type.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then from Timon of Athens, I don't have anyone because the only characters I could think of that fit the 6 type were servants, and that just seems icky, so I'm not gonna go there. From Titus Andronicus, I think Marcius Andronicus, Titus's son, is a 6. And also possibly Chiron of the 2 sons is a 6. I don't know. Those boys are so messed up. I don't really want to go too far into their psychologies because it makes me feel queasy. But I think Chiron might be a 6. So that's everybody that I had. I would love, Jeremy, to talk about Gertrude with you. I really would, because I don't know. That one and Viola. I'm like, I don't know if I can truly get on board with this. I don't know. What were you thinking?
Well, I mean, setting Viola aside for a moment, in that play, I don't think there's any question about the take that play and all of its characters have about the issue we were talking about earlier in terms of like women needing to be seen a certain way and behave a certain way and have expectations of them. I think that's in part what that play is about, not entirely, but it's a big part of that play.
Yeah.
And it's a big part of what the characters think about that play, including some of the female characters thinking about themselves in that play.
Yeah.
And so we talk about why, but I think that's definitely a potential feature there. I don't know where else she would fit well because of that piece. I think if we're talking about security, which seems to be the thing for a 6, that's Gertrude. From page 1, the whole story is about her security or the country's security or something, and that's why she gets married so quickly. I mean, there are a lot of social reasons why the play might get written that way. But yeah, I think there's a good fit there.
Okay.
What are your
I've seen Gertrude played so many different ways, and I know there's so many different ways to interpret the character because she says so little. I was thinking about just that opening scene with them where Claudius calls her the jointress, right? The jointress to the warlike state. And I was like, okay, so is she a 9? Like, does she have peacemaking urges, and that's why she does the marriage? Because she's like, this is the most peaceful, whether for the realm or like it's the most politically secure. Like, is that? But I was like, but that's Claudius saying that about her to a room full of people who are expecting a certain message. So maybe she's not a 9. Maybe he's trying to promote the image of her as a 9. So I just like, I don't. I definitely sense the high stress, high anxiety, that desire for security. For security of her son, at least, like security of the family. But I don't know if any mother in her situation wouldn't have some level of stress, anxiety, and concern about security, right? Like, if you're a mother who cares about your child, how can you not experience the distress that she experiences in some level? Like, I don't know if that's intrinsic to her, or if that's just happens to be the mother hell that she's in by Act 4. But I'm with you, Jeremy. Like, I don't know where else to put her. That's the other piece, is I'm like, I don't know where else she would fit. Because I think she seems too steely for the 4. Because that was another one I considered. Like, is she a 4? Is she like way into like, but she's so graceful and genteel in public. She's got the public face so plastered on. And when she does the like more matter with less art, like she's so careful. And I don't see that as being particularly 4-ish. So I'm talking in circles because I don't really have an answer here. I worry about being like, she's a 6 because she's a matron. That's the part that I'm like, can we? I just want to make sure we just like discussed it.
Well, I will go back to the larger issue, which is, look, there's nothing especially friendly about what I'm about to say, but then as now, I think this is a conclusion we can draw, that security issues are going to confront women before they confront men. And
okay.
And there is, I mean, that's a sexist reality.
Yeah.
And it is, I think, without question, underlined by the playwright, as you observed earlier. The other question I have about this is, who is? Oh, it's something I think I brought up in an earlier episode, but like, who is playing these people?
Right.
And what is their security?
Mm-hmm.
And is it possible that the playwright is aware enough of who he's writing for that he's bringing in those things? And in almost all of these cases, in a number of these cases, if we take the, hey, there are a lot of women on this list, and hey, there are a lot of clowns on this list, young ones, I wonder if he is seeing something in the sort of insecurity of 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, 17-year-old boys, and bringing that forth too, to some degree, because that's who would have played these parts.
Sure.
And I just, that it's not just anxiety, it's also energy, right?
Yeah.
One gets channeled into the other. And I wonder if that's true there. And that's actually what I wonder about Viola. I mean, that play begins with her concerned. And continues with her concerned. I mean, the most famous monologue in Shakespeare, at least as far as the editions I attend, is her sort of processing the return of the ring. And I think that's all of that is her processing, maybe as a 6. It's definitely processing how she's being read, and whether her position with Orsino is secure, and whether it's too secure with Olivia, and I don't know.
Yeah, I can see that. I sense so much sickness in Sebastian. Like, he was one that kind of like Helena in Allswell, he was one of the first ones that I thought of, and I went to the text a little bit, and I was like, that just seems right. Like, Sebastian seems like a classic 6. And so I'm more amenable to the idea that she is a 6 as well, if this is like family values, right? That they share. This is a loyalty they have to each other that is rooted in deep love and deep history and heritage that they have with each other. And that they both operate on like a slightly more anxious wavelength naturally, because they're always concerned about the other. Because my theory with Twelfth Night is that as they were growing up, when one of them scraped their knee, the other one cried. Like my theory about them is that they like were inseparable emotionally from each other. And so their father dying when they were 13 is like, well, that's tough, but at least we have each other, right? And the fact that she has to compass the idea that he is gone is just like, it's so hard. She has to enter another life to get away from it. Like it's so all encompassing that she's like, I have to just be someone else. I can't be Viola. Viola doesn't exist without Sebastian. And that's why I see that play is like, you know, really about the siblings. So I can totally see that there's like that they together almost make up like the perfect 6, you know, that maybe like she's got more of the 6-wing 5 perhaps, and he's got more of the 6-wing 7, but together they're like really 6. I don't know. Because I don't know where else I would put Viola. I thought about Viola as a 3, perhaps. But apparently 6s go to 3 in stress.
Yep.
So maybe her can do, like, because she's very distressed on that beach. And she literally sort of gets the news. She kind of processes that her brother is dead. And she's like, well, okay, there's a duke. I'm going to serve him. You're going to tell them who I am. I'm going to be a boy. Like, she sort of like leaps into doer achiever mode. And maybe that's because she's in stress. So she's like going to the 3. Maybe that's what that is.
Productive, well-paced, and active are a couple of other words that I had written down for the high side of 3. And then the low side would be more anxious, frenetic, and a bit more image-driven. So
which is
Sebastian,
that's what I think. Because I think she copes better than he does in general in that play. I think she copes better. Okay, I'm behind the Messaline siblings as twins, as 6s. I can see that. I just wanted to make sure that we were thoughtful and conscientious about the women we made 6, the women we counted as 6s, and looked at them sort of perspicaciously. But yeah, this one was easier than the 5s. I found way more of these than I did the 5s.
We like to hide.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, 6s are great. And actually I have a pretty strong 6-wing, so I can orient kind of around some of the worry and the you know, catastrophizing and all that kind of stuff. And again, I think you're totally dead on with the fact that it's a mom hell. I mean, it really is. Like being a parent, being a mother, especially with all of the pressures that are on us, just by nature of society, that is something that we kind of burden. Not that fathers don't worry, clearly, but it is something that just kind of always is churning. It's ever present. I think. And again, Jeremy, listen, I know we're giving you grief about not knowing your type. Consider that everyone has bits and energies of all 9 numbers. You're not like relegated to just one. The whole point of this system is not to box you in. In fact, it is actually to show you the box that you put yourself in and show you how to access more traits and qualities that are around you, which ones are easy to reach, which ones are a bit more of a stretch. So it is for sure possible to be able to tap into traits of other types and see that evident in your own life.
Yeah, so. And what I've learned about the 6 today, it goes back to something Claire said, which is and the notion that there are more 6s maybe than anything else. And I'm like, is that true, or is it simply that like we are all the West Americans are concerned about stock markets and bank accounts and
pandemics.
We keep giving like the inputs of anxiety, right? Like we have built up a whole systems that are just about like running theater companies, that are just about like more things to worry about.
Sure.
And of course that's going to lead like more people to think they're a 6. I tend to say no. I absolutely resonate with the anxiety parts of this. But like, as you have said, any number could have anxiety, right?
Yeah, because I have anxiety. Like some of what you were saying about the going to achieving in stress, like going to 3 in stress and having that anxiety and be sort of being like high strung and needing, like if you're doing well, going to the 9 and like processing and finding time to process, like that's all stuff I've learned in therapy. You know what I mean? Like that all resonates with me, even though I'm not a 6. So yeah.
Right. Great point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I knocked one out.
Amazing. Well, you're not a 5. We knew you weren't a 5.
I think I'm a 5 or a 6 now, maybe.
Great.
And I know I'm not a 9, so I only have 6 options left. And I don't think I'm a 2. I don't think a 2. I think I have a lot of 2 that I understand, but I think that's out 2.
So tomorrow
we're almost halfway down.
I gotta say, I'm so excited for tomorrow. 7s are fun in Shakespeare.
It's gonna be fun. Wear your party hats.
We're gonna talk about Falstaff a lot, I'm sure.
We're gonna talk about Falstaff a lot. I'm so excited to talk about Falstaff. I'm gonna have all my quotes ready. It's gonna be great.
Hooray. I'll see you tomorrow.
Hooray. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, you guys.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Sweet Tea Shakespeare Hours. Our podcast was produced by Claire Martin and Jeremy Feebig. Ashanti Bennett is our general manager. Our theme song was written by Owen Eddy. This podcast was made possible by our friends at the Arts Council of Fayetteville and Cumberland County and our fabulous monthly sustainers at patreon.com/sweetteashakes. You can join us there for an exclusive weekly podcast and loads of other fun perks. If you've enjoyed your time with us today, subscribe to this podcast or leave us a review on whatever platform you get your podcasts from. If you want to hang out with us in a future episode, drop us a line at hours@sweetteashakespeare.com. That's HOURS@sweetteashakespeare.com. Thanks again for listening to the Sweet Tea Shakespeare Hours. Until next time, you that way, we this way.